The internet is buzzing about this new phenomenon that's called the Mandela effect.
Some childhood memories are so vivid you remember them perfectly. But what if those memories are wrong?
The spelling of words have changed, colors have changed, logos have changed, the world map has changed.
We have to take seriously the idea that space is bigger than our universe, that there are parallel universes, other regions of space. I call these parallel universes the level 1 parallel universes because they're not that different from our universe.
So maybe these differences in collective memories are actually evidence of our universe somehow becoming intertwined with another, if not identical, then very similar universe. So people's memories are correct, they're just remembering something that happened in another dimension.
And if you imagine that you could make your own universe, and you could have a little dial, a little knob that could change each of these numbers, I would recommend don't touch those knobs.
In 2013, the world received news of the death of Nelson Mandela, a revered South African leader who spent 27 years of his life imprisoned for his activism and revolution against apartheid. Mandela would later become the South African president from 1994 to 1999, and the causes he stood up for inspired his nation. His death was not unexpected for his family or those who followed him in the media. He had reached the old age of 95, and on top of that, he had been deathly ill for some time. But news of his death sparked numerous questions around the world and opened up doors to entirely different worlds of possibilities. Because as far as some people remembered, Nelson Mandela had already been dead for almost 30 years. Fiona Broom, a paranormal researcher, took notice to Mandela's death way before 2013. It was in 2009 that Broom introduced a strange phenomena that she was experiencing in her life. Broom had vivid memories of Mandela dying in prison in the late 20th century. She had watched his funeral air all over US, Canadian, and British television. She remembers the images of his funeral. She even remembers hearing the touching words from his wife play over and over again. Much to her surprise, hundreds of thousands of people around the world shared those same memories as I do today. I remember the reports and protests while he was in jail. I remember him dying in jail, and I remember the huge funeral procession that was held for him. And that's exactly how hundreds of thousands of people remember it today. But none of this ever happened. Fiona Broom called this strange phenomena the Mandela effect, and is stuck in the minds of the people. No one could understand how Mandela was still alive. Even the former president of the United States, George W. Bush, was experiencing the Mandela effect. This was in 2007.
I thought an interesting comment was made when somebody said to me, I heard somebody say, where's Mandela? Well, Mandela's dead.
This press conference was 11 years before Mandela's death. A statement as if Mandela had already been dead for a decade. So what's going on? How could the then U.S. President George W. Bush give a press release that a former South African president and lifelong activist was dead? You have to keep in mind, Bush is not as stupid as he always sounded. For Bush to give a press release that Mandela was dead would be extremely careless by the White House. Mandela would immediately come out in interviews, as he was known to actively do, and it would have resulted in a greater lack of respect for the U.S. government from the international community. Not many people questioned Bush at all that day at the press release, and Mandela never spoke out at Bush's remarks. And that's strange, considering that Nelson Mandela was an outspoken critic of George W. Bush.
Both Bush as well as Tony Blair are undermining an idea which was sponsored by their predecessors. They do not care. Is it because the Secretary General of the United Nations is now a black man? What I'm condemning is that one power with a president who has no foresight, who cannot think properly, is now wanting to plunge the world into a holocaust.
After such radical differences in policy and clear disdain towards President Bush, are you telling me that Nelson Mandela, who was known to speak out in the media, would remain silent when George Bush said he was dead? It doesn't make any sense. George W. Bush's father, former President George H.W. Bush, also mistakenly announced the death of Nelson Mandela. This was reported by mainstream media, and they had to go on damage control to reassure the South African people that their president, Nelson Mandela, was indeed still alive. And in a book titled English Alive, published in 1991, a collection of writings from South African high schools, published by Claremont, the Western Cape branch of the South African Council for English Education, we find on page 54 the chaos that erupted in the ranks of the ANC when Nelson Mandela died on the 23rd of July, 1991, brought the January 29th, 1991 Inkatha ANC peace accord to nothing. This is not some web article. This is a published book from the South African Council for English Education, which gathered articles from some of South Africa's best high school students. Are you telling me that South African publishers, writers, official councils, and high school students are also going to make the same mistake that George W. Bush and George H.W. Bush made? Or could it be that they, along with hundreds of thousands of people all around the world, all remember the same thing? Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the late 20th century. There are just as many opponents to the Mandela effect as there are supporters. And they believe that the human memory is faulty and unreliable, and that false news can spread as quickly as true news can. They simply believe we are all experiencing false memories. Some psychologists say that the Mandela effect is a prime example of the misinformation effect, where a pre-existing memory is retroactively replaced or corrupted by misinformation, creating a false memory so convincing that a person will believe it to be true. But this is the best argument that opponents of the Mandela effect have.
Childhood memories are so vivid you remember them perfectly, but what if those memories are wrong? And thousands of others have the exact same false memories.
The internet is buzzing about this new phenomenon that's called the Mandela effect. Christy Siefkin looks into this bizarre theory.
We all doubt our memories sometimes, but even when you're positive that you remember something, turns out there's a good chance you're wrong.
What? Oh my goodness.
All of us fall victim to false memory.
Dr. Gene Brewer is an associate professor of psychology at Arizona State University. He and his team study memory through experiments and neuroimaging.
We all misremember things, and we do it in a stereotypical way. Our systems work very similarly to one another. So I may have a false memory, you may have a false memory, and those could be very similar to one another.
Just look online and you'll find thousands of people sharing the exact same false memories. This phenomenon is called the Mandela effect.
Oh, shoot.
According to the Mandela effect, there are several pop culture memories we all seem to get wrong. Take, for example, the iconic Queen song, "We Are the Champions." We've all chimed in at the bar, belting out that famous last line,
"'Cause we are the champions of the world."
But we've been singing it wrong. The lyrics of "the world" aren't even in the last line.
We are the champions. I think it's a lie. It has to be.
Another memory we can't get right, the Monopoly Man. Maybe you don't know what his name is. It's Rich Uncle Pennybags. But surely you know what he looks like. Which of these is the correct picture? Which is the Monopoly Man?
Which is the correct Monopoly Man? The one with the eyeglass.
Ace Ventura, Pet Detective. And you must be the Monopoly guy.
He doesn't have an eyeglass.
Oh, he doesn't? I just gave him one?
Yeah. Children of the 1980s read the Berenstain Bears book series hundreds of times, and most of them are positive that Steen was spelled with an E.
It's an E, right? Berenstain?
It's an A.
What?
And finally, how about this Jedi mind trick? In Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back, what does Darth Vader say to reveal his relationship to Luke?
Luke, I am your father.
Luke, I am your father.
Luke, I am your father.
What if I told you that's wrong?
I'll say, no, you're wrong.
What Darth Vader really said was,
"No, I am your father."
How is it that we all misremember the exact same things? Dr. Brewer points to recombination.
As you're trying to remember what the Monopoly Man may have looked like, you may inadvertently remember some bits and pieces or details about the Planner's Peanut Man.
Yep, it's the Planner's Peanut Man who has the monocle, not the Monopoly Man.
Do you believe that hundreds of thousands of people from all over the world who don't even know each other are experiencing the same false memories of a man's funeral with such vivid details? And are you telling me that in the day and age of technology that the same people who were actively searching and looking for news of Mandela in prison could not come across news that he had been released and became the South African president? Those who support the Mandela effect say yes, it's extremely strange. It is difficult to imagine the Mandela effect being a case of mass false memories. Those who believe in the Mandela effect have an out-of-this-world explanation for what's going on, and it has real scientific backing today with the latest breakthroughs in physics. Supporters of the Mandela effect theory believe that we are experiencing dimensional shifts, meaning there are countless dimensions parallel to our own that are extremely difficult for human beings to experience or witness.
It's certainly a scientific question we can discuss, whether our reality is this big. We should also be mindful that we humans have again and again made this mistake of underestimating the size of our cosmos. First we thought Earth was the center of everything, right? Then we discovered that our solar system existed in a galaxy and a universe. So it might very well happen again. There's no guarantee in the laws of physics that we humans should be able to see everything that exists. And if we cannot, by definition, there are parallel universes. There's a third kind of parallel universes which have come into the scientific discussion from studying not the biggest things, but from studying the smallest things, by studying quantum mechanics, the rules that govern how atoms and elementary particles behave. This is arguably the most successful theory in all of science. It's given us transistors, computers, cell phones, lasers, etc. But at the cost of some weird ideas. Quantum mechanics tells us that little particles can be in several places at once, If the particles can be in several places at once, well, I'm made of these particles. I should be able to be in several places at once as well. And in 1957, a young graduate student named Hugh Everett worked this out really carefully and argued that what it really means is that there is a third kind of parallel universes, where when you make certain decisions, effectively our world splits into several parallel tracks. If I get a parking ticket, there's a parallel universe maybe where I didn't.
Over the years, millions have become convinced that the fabric of the universe is being altered, with details of personal and historical events changing, as well as the names of brands that they love, books that they read, quotes from their favorite movies, songs, logos, statues, even the human biology. And on top of that, people are claiming that land masses on the world map are changing, and even the position of the Earth in our galaxy. The most popular theory concerning the Mandela effect and all that it affects is that our reality is collapsing on a quantum level, and that the aspects of two or more parallel universes are leaking into our own. That in these different dimensions are existing copies of our existence, just slightly altered by various reasons.
And now if we meld this with string theory, here's the picture we're led to. Each of these universes has extra dimensions. The extra dimensions take on a wide variety of different shapes. The different shapes yield different physical features. And we find ourselves in one universe instead of another simply because it's only in our universe that the physical features, like the amount of dark energy, are right for our form of life to take hold. And this is the compelling but highly controversial picture of the wider cosmos that cutting-edge observation and theory has now led us to seriously consider. Going further, if there are other universes, the theory predicts that every so often those universes can collide. And if our universe got hit by another, that collision would generate an additional subtle pattern of temperature variations across space that we might one day be able to detect. And so exotic as this picture is, it may one day be grounded in observations establishing the existence of other universes.
Physicists have said that these dimensions are so strikingly similar to our own, we don't even take notice to the slight changes in what we believe to be our one linear lifespan. So the question is it possible that in one dimension, Nelson Mandela was a South African activist that was imprisoned and died in jail, and in a parallel dimension, Mandela was released from jail and moved on to become the South African president? Is it possible that different people experience the two different realities? Whether you want to believe it or not, this is a real scientific debate today. Some researchers and physicists say yes, both of these realities were real, as we understand real to be, and both experiences were experienced by different people. And if that's not strange enough, once Fiona Broome coined the term Mandela effect, and after Mandela's death in 2013, there was a sharp spike in searches for the Mandela effect online, and more people began citing hundreds of examples of memories that they swear up and down that they had in the late 1990s and early 2000s, only to find out today that some of the things that they most vividly remember in their early years of life never happened at all. Billy Graham, known by evangelicals and Christian Zionists as America's preacher, known by others for his corruption on many levels, died in 2018 at the old age of 99. This guy was around American politics and religion for a very long time. He served as a spiritual counselor for Harry Truman all the way to Barack Obama. But his long track record and corruption scandals are not what's significant about Billy Graham. Most people, including myself, remember watching the news reports on Graham's death and his funeral much earlier than 2018. Then there is a children's program I grew up with in America, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and this was an extremely interesting Mandela effect for me. If you're a millennial who grew up in America, there is a strong chance your parents had this playing at your home too. And this really shook my head, because my parents always tuned me into this program, and I remember the theme song as if it was yesterday. It was ingrained in my head. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? But no, here is what the original version is today.
It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? It's a neighborly day in this beauty wood, a neighborly day for a beauty.
What? It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood? No way. It doesn't feel right. I'm telling you 1000% that was not the theme song. The original theme song was It's a Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, not this neighborhood. Shazam is one of those Mandela effects that really put me back in my seat. And for many others growing up in the 90s, it has the same effect. The movie starred the actor Sinbad, a comedian playing a black genie in a white suburb. I remember this movie because it was so terrible. I couldn't even get through the entire movie. And not more than a couple years later, a movie starring then basketball star Shaquille O'Neal came out called Kazam. And I remember it today as if it was yesterday. Why in the world would they come out with identical movies, a ripoff of Shazam, when Shazam was so terrible in the first place? It didn't make sense to me then, and it doesn't make sense to me today. But what's really not making sense to me and hundreds of thousands of people who watched this film too, is that the movie Shazam never existed. The movie Shazam literally did not exist. It has never played in any theater, and it has never been sold or rented out in any movie store anywhere in this existence. And the actor Sinbad admits this from his own self.
Here we go. Reddit users are convinced the comedian Sinbad played a genie in a 90s movie called Shazam. Turns out the movie does not actually exist, but it soon could. Sinbad took to Twitter saying he'd be willing to take on the wish-granting role for all the people convinced the film is real. Comedic actor posted a tweet back in September confirming the movie is a figment of the internet's imagination. That hasn't stopped the internet before, by the way. Saying, have you noticed no one my age has seen this so-called Sinbad movie genie?
So again, I ask you, how could millions misremember it? Because one word can change everything, and for some, it's changing their entire perception of their childhood.
We can't notice anything because the changes are so small. You know, everything looks the same. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't feel like we're slipping through universes. It just feels like we're in one reality, and it's linear, and we're going from point A to point B. And as we go from point A to point B, we have these experiences, you know, our body ages, and, you know, so it seems like we're living in one reality. And, you know, you can say, oh, this guy, he's got some terrible memories. Like, I don't remember JFK. I remember 6 people. You know, I remember the Berenstain Bears, STAIN. You know what I mean? The VW logo hadn't changed. You know, C3PO always had a silver leg. Well, if that's the case, then how you doing, man? My name's Case, and it's a pleasure to be in your reality. Because this is not the reality that I grew up in. okay? And I'm totally cool with that. There is no fear.
A lot of people growing up in America in the 90s remember a man named Ed McMahon. He was Johnny Carson's sidekick and later became the face of Publishers Clearinghouse. Publishers Clearinghouse is a marketer for magazines. They had this marketing gimmick where they would put their subscribers in a yearly sweepstakes drawing, and whoever won, Ed McMahon would drive out to their house in a white van surrounded by balloons and cameras and champagne, and he would go and knock on their door and present them one of those blown up, huge $1 million checks.
You just won our Forever Prize.
I remember watching countless special programs with Ed McMahon, presenting those checks to people. And he apparently remembers doing it too in his old age, as he recalls his younger days working for Publishers Clearinghouse in this comedy rap song he appeared in.
Shout out to my people. This is Ed McMahon, rolling slow through the suburbs in an unmarked van. I ran the strip in the 80s, brought big fat checks to the ladies. But now the bills have come due, and my credit score's whacked. So I'm hitting up the winners to get my checks back. Hi, Ed McMahon. Remember I gave you that big check? I'd like to have that check back.
But guess what? Again, it never happened. In today's history, Ed McMahon never worked for Publishers Clearinghouse. Yet so many people remember Ed McMahon traveling around and handing out those $1 million checks for Publishers Clearinghouse. So much so that his name and work was used in the likes of the TV series Friends as a joke.
Yeah, you're just gonna knock on his door and change his life forever. You're like Ed McMahon, except without the big check.
I mean, you have to keep something in mind. It's not just the writers that had this memory, but the actors, the audience, all the people remember the same thing. Ed McMahon delivering checks to people's doorsteps would have to be known for the joke to be funny. It's weird. So many of us watch countless clips of him doing this, and they played him in commercials between TV shows constantly.
I'll tell you why I'm here. I happen to be in town over doing some stuff for the NBC affiliate. That's right. And, Ed McMahon, our good friend, could not be here. Yeah. But it seems, David, that you are the $1 million winner.
Oh, my God! I've won $1 million!
I also remember watching Looney Tunes as a kid, and that makes sense, right? Because they are cartoons. I don't remember watching Looney Tunes, which it is today. I remember eating Fruit Loops, not Fruit Loops. I remember eating Jiffy peanut butter, not Jif peanut butter. And I definitely remember that the Kellogg's Raisin Bran Sun on the front of the cereal box had big black square sunglasses. It never happened. Then you have Fruit of the Loom. Many remember the Fruit of the Loom logo had a basket that the fruit was coming out of. No basket. The background of this character and his purpose is creepy enough, but we all know his looks and his costume very well, especially that top hat with red stripes. It is a hat often worn in movies or U.S. holidays like 4th of July. But Uncle Sam never had a red striped hat, though the people remember clearly he did. These are just a handful of examples, and there are many more, but you get the Mandela effect now. So what's going on? Preachers and sheikhs are taking the Mandela effect seriously and teaching their congregations about it. There have even been significant changes to the Bible.
Isaiah chapter number 11, it says, the wolf shall lie down with the lamb. Now, I got an email today, and I'm getting them every day practically from people who are greatly upset by the Mandela effect. And they're buying into this stuff. And the email I got today says that the King James Bible is the one they changed. Not the New King James, not the NIV and the rest of them. but the King James Bible has been changed. Now, folks, don't let them flim-flam you and blow you away. Consider tonight, if they can change the Bible, if they can change God's holy word, then it is no longer settled in heaven.
A Sufi sheikh in America, Muslim Miramadi, is teaching his Muslim congregation that the Mandela effect is not only real, but it's a sinister plan to change all holy books.
So many people are beginning to aware, particular movie titles have changed from what we understood the title was. Particular shows, particular cartoons, particular items, their names have changed and things have changed. This is the sign of a great deceit that begins to enter onto this dunya. They say there are verses of the Bible that everybody knows, the Lord's Prayer, that forgive us our trespassings as we forgive those who trespass and come against us. Now anybody who Googles the Bible, it changed. It became from trespassing to debt. Forgive us our debt and we forgive our debtors, as if the bank wrote it. It means many of these issues, there are verses now of coming out, I think they called it Surah Luke, they're 19:27, book 19 or verse 27 of their book, that says, who didn't believe in me, bring him in front of me and slay him in front of me. Why would Sayyidina Isa speak like that? But the shaitans would.
People who reject the Mandela effect say these are all just collective false memories shared by large groups of people. Those who support the Mandela effect say that these examples are like residue. Imagine it like fingerprints or evidence of parallel dimensions slightly different than our own, and that we are shifting or drifting in and out of these worlds at different times. There are some who believe that huge multinational corporations, governments, and dark scientists, such as those scientists who are operating the Large Hadron Collider at CERN, and those quantum physicists at D-Wave, are altering states of reality for greed and lust of power. And there are some who propose that extraterrestrials are interfering with humankind in different dimensions, and that these alterations have ripple effects. These are the main theories revolving around the Mandela effect, and they were expressed in this 2016 episode of The X-Files, which attracted an audience of over 16 million people.
The ability to manipulate memory creates unlimited power. Political, economical, cultural, runs the gamut from Holocaust denial to corporate product recognition. There are companies who are willing to pay anything, do anything, to have people forget that their products explode on impact or suddenly catch fire. The companies like G spending billions in profit to repress these memories. The only thing I haven't been able to do is to figure out how they're doing it.
They can't. I'm sorry, but this is ridiculous. I mean, the Mandela effect is simply...
It's the Mingle effect. Guys, it's the Mingle effect. Just say it.
...is simply people misremembering stuff.
But maybe this is actually evidence of a parallel universe.
Wait, what?
So maybe these differences in collective memories are actually evidence of our universe somehow becoming intertwined with another, if not identical, then very similar universe. So people's memories are correct, they're just remembering something that happened in another dimension. Hence the discrepancies. That's science, Scully.
Theoretical science at best, Mulder.
Yeah, we're not gonna do this parallel universe sci-fi gobbledygook nerd boy, okay? So just please drop it, because that crap gives me a headache.
It's a lot better than some evil entity zapping people's brains with a hypno ray gun.
I never mentioned a hypno ray gun.
Guys, it's faulty memory because Occam's razor.
That's Ozzy's razor, not Occam's. It's always been Ozzy's razor.
Maybe in a parallel universe it is, but in still yet another universe is perhaps known as Occam's axe.
It's not parallel universes!
As we have learned over the last decades, the powers that be share a lot of truth in the movies and TV series, and of course you have countless examples of predictive programming. Assuming even the lowest rate of accuracy, this episode of The X-Files was extremely significant. In regards to those dark corporations and scientists, most people are pointing their fingers at CERN, and for good reason. CERN opened up 64 years ago. The European Organization for Nuclear Research, known as CERN, is a European research organization that operates the largest particle physics laboratory in the world. CERN is not only attempting to discover the conditions around the time of the beginning of the universe, which they have already accomplished by discovering the so-called God particle in 2012, but they want to open up portals to different dimensions and alter space and time. The black holes that some physicists and experts in the field believe that CERN generates can have unimaginable consequences in various realities and dimensions. Then what happens? Between 2015 and 2017, the Mandela effect began trending online. Search hits on Google spiked, and people were posting videos on YouTube. Oddly enough, on September 16, 2015, CERN announced the LIGO discovery. It was the first direct observation of gravitational waves. Gravitational waves, by the way, are disturbances in the curvature or fabric of space-time.
Back in 1915, Albert Einstein gave the world his new theory of gravity, the general theory of relativity, which is based on the beautiful idea that gravity is nothing but warps and curves in the fabric of space-time. Now, barely a year later, Einstein pushed this idea one vital step further. You see, he realized that if space is flexible enough to warp, then it should also be able to ripple, to vibrate, to undulate. And that would mean that if something were to jostle the fabric of space-time, it should send out ripples in the fabric of space, and it's those ripples that we now call gravitational waves. Now, of course, the source of gravitational waves would not be my hand jostling space. Instead, it would be some highly energetic astrophysical process like rapidly orbiting neutron stars or black holes that would send out a steady rumble of gravitational waves.
These waves distort space-time, and CERN could essentially rip the fabric of space-time, and this is when the Mandela effect was at its peak. CERN recently released a statement saying, "Another way of revealing extra dimensions would be through the production of microscopic black holes. What exactly we would detect would depend on the number of extra dimensions, the mass of the black hole, the size of the dimensions, and the energy at which the black hole occurs. If micro black holes do appear in the collisions created by the LHC, they would disintegrate rapidly. They would decay into standard model or supersymmetric particles, creating events. Creating events in extra dimensions." The LHC has been shut down since the beginning of 2019, so people are noticing that there are less Mandela effects and less weirdness in the world. Here is a CERN employee known around the web as the old guy with the quantum shirt. It says Bond 1, which the actor's name in the first James Bond movie was Nelson, and he has the Mandela sign after, Nelson Mandela, and then the statement, "We are happy at CERN." They are clearly trying to show that they are the cause behind the quantum shifts, or at the very least, they know what's going on. Quinn Michaels, an expert in the field of artificial intelligence, talks about CERN's children's section on their website, subliminally promoting the Mandela effect, including the Darth Vader scene, the Snow White scene, Mirror, Mirror on the Wall, and countless other examples. Again, CERN was not created for the purpose of discovering the God particle, but to create a collapse of alternate universes into this one. by knowing the frequencies of those alternate realities and merging them into this one. Abul Sadiq Abdullah Hashem, peace be upon him, a companion of the Holy Will, he said that CERN is the root word of Kernonos or Cernonos, a name given to the Celtic horn god, the Celtic counterpart to Baphomet. CERN's logo is a magical sigil, he said, which contains the number 666, but more importantly, it symbolizes the fusion of worlds through the image of two worlds intersecting. Abul Sadiq said the tunnel at CERN is nothing more than a giant magical circle, otherwise known as a stargate. CERN is using science and magic to try and rip a hole into space-time and summon something that is pure evil. Ahmed al-Hassan said, in reality, this place looks like a normal atom plant, but in reality, the place is an attempt to communicate with new creatures, other than the ones that they know, more powerful than the ones that they know, extraterrestrial creatures. They are trying to communicate with very evil and demonic aliens. So yes, this is happening. We are experiencing shifts and alterations in different dimensions, and there are real causes behind it. Who is really behind it? Is it CERN? Is it the black government? Is it dark scientists? Abul Sadiq said, the extraterrestrials go back and forth between different dimensions, both good and bad extraterrestrials, and that they have technology and ability to alter these many different dimensions, causing shifts in them. He likened it to the Adjustment Bureau.
Why are you still thinking about running?
I don't really know what's going on here.
But you've just seen behind a curtain that you weren't even supposed to know existed. Must be jarring. It's not your fault. Your path through the world this morning was supposed to have been adjusted. You were supposed to spill your coffee as you entered the park this morning. You would have gone upstairs to change, you would have missed the bus, and you would have arrived at work 10 minutes later than you did, and we would have been gone.
I was supposed to spill my coffee.
We call that an adjustment. See, sometimes when people spill their coffee, or their internet goes out, or they misplace their keys, they think it's chance. And sometimes it is. Sometimes it's us. You understand? Not one word about us. Okay. Oh, one more thing. You bumped into a woman this morning on the bus. Elise?
What does that have to do with anything?
Well, you weren't ever supposed to see her again.
What is it? What does that matter?
Because it matters. It's in his wallet.
Hey! Ah! God! Hey! What's with you guys? Jesus! Oh, come on. No.
What the hell? Really? What the hell? Okay. Take him back. Enjoy the rest of your day.
I can walk. I mean, I'm capable of walking.
Stories of alternate universes and dimensions have been expressed through the works of fiction writers such as Philip K. Dick. Two of his more famous books, The Man in the High Castle, where he showed a different reality other than the one of Americans defeating the Nazis in World War II. And he also wrote The Adjustment Bureau, the very book Abul Sadiq used as an example of how extraterrestrials are altering different dimensions. Philip K. Dick was brave enough to unveil a little of what he had come to learn about the matrix that we call life here on Earth back in 1977.
The subject of this speech is a topic which has been discovered recently I, in my stories and novels, often write about counterfeit worlds, semi-real worlds, as well as deranged private worlds, inhabited often by just one person, while meantime the other characters either remain in their own worlds throughout or are somehow drawn into one of the peculiar ones. This theme occurs in the corpus of my 27 years of writing. At no time did I have a theoretical or conscious explanation for my preoccupation with these pluriform pseudo-worlds, but now I think I understand. What I was sensing was the manifold of partially actualized realities lying tangent to what evidently is the most actualized one, the one which the majority of us, by consensus gentium, agree on. You are free to believe me or to disbelieve, but please take my word on it that I am not joking. This is very serious, a matter of importance. At that time, I had no idea what I was seeing. It resembled nothing that I had ever heard described. It resembled plasmic energy. It had colors. It moved fast. It collected and then dispersed.
Philip had tapped into something that helped him understand that we were experiencing dimensional shifts and that other entities were altering or manipulating these dimensions ever so slightly. The Mandela effect. This is very important to understand because it answers the why. Why would dark, greedy scientists or advanced extraterrestrial species go through all of these links and travel through space and time and all these different dimensions just to change a word in a quote of a movie or a logo on clothing or an image of food packaging? It's not like that. Let's say that there is a man who is going to go to lunch one day, and he's going to meet a man who will lead him on a path towards creating a device that will destroy the world. These extraterrestrials will come in and cause this man, just like the Adjustment Bureau, to miss his alarm clock, or to spill something on his shirt, or to lose his keys, to avoid that meeting with the man. But with that event comes close to infinite possibilities where all those people who would be involved would go off into their lives and create all sorts of different possibilities, and would eventually lead to all of these different examples that we see today. It's a ripple effect. The good news is that the good extraterrestrials are shutting these bad